Oliver felt a sharp pain in his feet. When he looked down, he realized that he had stepped on a suspicious-looking stone. He did not give it much importance, but after taking a closer look, he discovered that it wasn't a normal stone. He thought he had found something astronomical. Oliver decided to take the stone to a jeweler with the intention of exchanging it for a lot of money. This will change your life forever, but not in the way he expected. Oliver had so much pain in his foot that he limped. He was then approached by a lifeguard who asked him if everything was okay. Oliver thought about keeping the stone for himself, but something told him that he had to show the lifeguard what he had stepped on. The lifeguard told Oliver that he had the right to keep the stone. Oliver was relieved, but eventually he would come to regret it. Oliver decided that he would go to a jeweler he knows. This is the only person I really trust right now. Oliver quickly arrived at Mark's jewelry store. He felt lucky that the entire store was empty. Mark was surprised to see Oliver. Oliver began to ramble on about this very special stone that he wanted to sell. Mark didn't believe Oliver at first, but he accepted it anyway. Mark saw the stone glittering in Oliver's hand, but thought it was a cheap stone from a souvenir shop. But when Oliver handed the stone to Mark, it suddenly stopped shining. Mark was incredibly confused at first, but then he realized something. But I needed time? Mark was surprised to see the stone. Oliver could see that. It was as if Mark recognized something. Mark told Oliver that he needed a day to investigate and authenticate the stone. Only then could you offer a reasonable price. Oliver hesitated, but agreed to these terms. Oliver couldn't sleep all night. I was constantly thinking about the stone. Could it be worth a life-changing amount of money? Eventually, he fell asleep, but woke up an hour later, bathing in sweat. I had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. The next day, Oliver returned to the Mark. When I entered, the atmosphere was very different from yesterday. Oliver no longer felt welcome. He decided to ignore his instinct. He had to know how much the stone was worth. Mark instantly acted suspiciously as he began the conversation. He told Oliver that he couldn't even have to see this stone. Oliver was confused. And what does that mean? Mark wasn't done yet. A massive tirade began. Oliver had a big, heated argument with Mark. Oliver wanted to retrieve his stone, but Mark didn't even show his stone. He said he no longer had the right. Oliver really wanted to start a fight, but there were more people in the shop, so he calmed down a bit. Oliver then decided that he would retrieve his stone. Without warning, Mark entered the back office. He didn't see his stone, but he knew it had to be somewhere. Mark immediately followed Oliver inside, and the two continued to argue. Finally, Mark relented. Mark gave the stone to Oliver, but when Oliver looked at it, it didn't start to glow. Oliver asks Mark what he has done to the stone, but Mark only gives a few false answers. Then Oliver realizes that something is wrong. The stone Oliver had found was much heavier, so Mark gave Oliver a fake stone to get rid of. It even seemed very cheap. Oliver returned the stone to Mark, and Mark finally realized that it was futile to try to trick Oliver. Mark sighs and returns the stone to Oliver. Oliver eventually calmed down, but then Mark told him that he had made a big mistake. I shouldn't have taken the stone back. Mark said Oliver would definitely regret this. Oliver comes out with the stone. He kept thinking about what Mark had just said. This cannot be good. What had he found? Oliver sat in his car and instantly felt like he was being watched. He had to protect the stone at all costs. But what happened next? Oliver never expected. When he walked away, everything was fine, and Oliver was relieved to have the stone. Then he realizes that a black pickup truck is following him. Was this a coincidence? To be sure, Oliver drove the same round 3 times. The black van was still behind him. This cannot be good. Oliver stepped on the gas to shake the truck, but the truck also accelerated. Oliver was really scared. For a brief moment, he wanted to throw the stone out the window, but something prevented him from doing so. After some clever maneuvers, Oliver managed to shake the truck that was following him. Now she knew for sure that she had found something special, but he had to get rid of it quickly. But he was only thinking about money and not about his own safety. Oliver decided that he would go to another jeweler the next day to sell this stone. It was already late at that point, so there was no longer any jewelry store open. It just had to happen tonight. And Oliver had a feeling it wasn't going to be easy. Oliver was so restless that night that he decided to go to a friend's house. He wanted to show the stone before selling it. The decision to go to this friend probably saved his life, because when he came home, he turned pale. There were many people gathered in front of Oliver's house when he returned. He didn't know what was going on, but then he saw something. His neighbor recognized Oliver and told him it wasn't a good idea to go inside. The first thing Oliver sees is that his front window is completely shattered. Upon further inspection, it appears that his front door was kicked in as well. Everyone tried to stop Oliver from entering, but he didn't listen. Oliver's house is a big mess. Oliver couldn't believe his eyes. When he realized that nothing had been stolen, he knew they were after the stone. Literally, his entire house was searched and many things were destroyed. He had to call the police. When they called the police, they didn't want to come if they didn't steal anything, but Oliver insisted that they come and make a report. This was the only way insurance would cover this. The woman on the phone didn't seem to like her, but told Oliver that she would send some officers. After waiting half an hour, a police car finally arrived. There was only one officer inside the car. Oliver quickly ran out to tell him what was going on. He seemed to take it very seriously until he walked in. The police officer walked in, and upon entering, he suddenly received a call. When he answers, his attitude changes completely. He looked at Oliver and said nothing more. Oliver has a feeling that something is wrong. Oliver asks the police officer what's going on, but he tells Oliver that nothing is wrong. He then says that Oliver needs to file a report and that he will be investigated. When Oliver asked why he didn't investigate the raid, he does not respond. Oliver submits a detailed report of the raid, but he's surprised that, without even looking at him, the police officers back up to his car and just drive away. Why didn't they take it seriously? Is all of this connected? Oliver really wants to get rid of the stone. The first thing you will do in the morning is go to the nearest jewelry store. Now it's too late to just throw it away, because the people looking for it will keep coming for it. Oliver didn't sleep all night. His neighbor invited him to stay at his house. Oliver accepted because he no longer felt safe in his own home. He counted down the minutes to drive to the jewelry box and get rid of the stone. At the time he opened the jewelry store, Oliver was there. As you enter the jewelry box, you feel that the jewelry box is waiting for you. He was greeted instantly and felt very welcome. Maybe Mark had told this jeweler about the stone, or there was something else Oliver didn't know. The jeweler asked Oliver to inspect the stone. When he saw the stone, he gasped. This gave Oliver the indication that he knew something else. The stone didn't shine at all. Then the jeweler asked Oliver to touch him. When Oliver touched the stone, it instantly began to glow. That's when the jeweler made a huge offer. Oliver felt as if he were in heaven. He could finally get rid of the stone and get a lot of money. But things would quickly turn sour. Oliver was very happy and let his guard down. He told the jeweler that he accepted his offer without really thinking about it. Then the jeweler said he would take the money out of his vault. But this took a long time. The jeweler seemed to really take his time. Oliver knocked on his office door to see what was going on. But the jeweler didn't answer at all. It was as if he was entertaining Oliver. Oliver was really confused. He just wanted his money. A man who was already in the store when Oliver walked in was staring at him from the corner. Oliver hadn't noticed this, but he felt like he was being watched. Oliver felt really anxious. The man did not move an inch until Oliver felt something painful. Without realizing it, Oliver was on the ground. Someone had sneaked up on him from behind. The jeweler returned and confirmed to the man that Oliver was the one they were looking for. Oliver began to cry. Suddenly, more people flooded the inside of the jewelry store. Oliver only realized after a few minutes that the FBI was arriving. Oliver had no idea why he was being chased, but he had a feeling that it had something to do with the stone. Oliver was arrested and told he had the right to remain silent. Oliver was so confused that he didn't even know what was going on. Was he really arrested? They dragged him into an FBI van and put him in the back. Oliver was in total shock. He even fainted for a moment. It was all too much. The agents tried to bring him back to consciousness. Oliver began begging the officers to let him go, but they were not going to let him go. He was taken to the nearest FBI office. As he entered the office, everyone looked at him as if he was some kind of criminal. Oliver had to clear up his story if he wanted to get out of this situation, or else he would be in jail for the rest of his life. Instantly, he faced the stone. They asked him where he had gotten her from and who his accomplices were. Oliver was still so shocked that he couldn't even answer a single question. Then they took him to a lineup. He was asked to identify his accomplices. The people in line didn't even seem to recognize Oliver and were surprised to see him here. Oliver asked the officers if this was an elaborate joke, but they weren't joking. He tells them that he doesn't know anyone in the lineup. He calms down and tells the officers that he is ready to tell the whole story of how he obtained this stone. The officers were very interested and agreed to take him away for questioning. Oliver begins to tell his side of the story. He found the stone on the beach while surfing. He stood on top of him and really hurt his feet. He even showed the scar on his feet. The officers agreed that they would believe him and go to the beach to investigate. Oliver was taken to the beach with officers to identify the location where he had found the stone. Oliver pointed sharply to the spot where he had found the stone. A large group of officers immediately investigated further. Fortunately for Oliver, he saw the lifeguard he had spoken to earlier. The lifeguard agreed to speak with officers. He gave Oliver the alibi he needed so that he wouldn't get this stone illegally. Then, the officers trusted Oliver again and began to tell him what was happening with the stone. The stone or diamond was part of a massive diamond theft last week. Oliver could prove his innocence. And thanks to footprints on the beach and more people finding stones, this led to the real thieves. The thieves had hijacked a plane carrying a lot of diamonds. When they jumped out of the plane, they lost some diamonds in the water. Oliver was fully compensated for all damages.